What's up, Ravens fans? It's time to answer your questions as part of this week's Ravens Mailbag. We're diving into the draft conversation. You guys may have seen the first mock draft monitor that Ryan put out earlier today. Well, now we're jumping full scale into draft talk. We're also going to talk a little free agency and more on today's Mailbag.
Our first question comes from Pedro Bochat. Sorry, Pedro, I cannot pronounce your first name. And his question is, with Ladarius Webb as safety and high investments at the position recently, Matt Elam, Terrence Brooks, Will Hill, Kendrick Lewis, will the Ravens take Jalen Ramsey if he's there at number 6? I see a lot of analysts see him as a safety. Well, I also see a lot of analysts with him as a cornerback, and I think that's the position that the Ravens would primarily be evaluating him at. That's the position that Jalen Ramsey out of Florida State played during his junior year. Some people say he's a better safety than corner. I don't know if the Ravens believe that. I think that they probably see him as a top-level cornerback as well. So, yeah, I think if Jalen Ramsey is there, and I'm really hoping that he's there.
You're driving the Jalen Ramsey bus.
Oh, yeah, I'm starting it up early. I really hope that this guy's there. He's a playmaker. That's exactly what they need. And you know what? If he can play a little safety too, that's great. That just gives you more insurance that this guy will definitely pan out somewhere as a number 6 pick if he's there.
Just noting that Terrence Brooks told me this guy's the real deal. So he's a Florida State teammate. He has high expectations for him at the NFL level. All right, the next question from Dan Husk, also dealing with the draft. I know the Ravens keep saying we need a pass rusher or a corner, so that possibly leaves Vernon Hargreaves from Florida or Shaq Lawson from Clemson. Who do you think would be a better fit out of those two guys? I think probably Vernon Hargreaves, and I think people think that Jalen Ramsey and Vernon Hargreaves are the top 2 corners in this year's draft. Both of them have the potential to be lockdown guys on the edge, and I think that Vernon Hargreaves could come in and certainly, I don't know if he would be a starter from day one, but he could probably be a number 3 corner. Maybe he could be a starter from day one. I'm not exactly sure. There's a lot of time between then. Shaq Lawson, to me, the Ravens want a pass rusher, and I don't know if he's a true pass rusher. He played a lot of defensive end at Clemson where he kind of stuffs the run and plays that role. I don't know if he's going to be a guy that's going to get you like 10 to 12 sacks.
We had 12.5 this past year.
Well, that's a nice number, but there's a difference going from the college game to the NFL game. Right. And so I don't know if he's going to be that kind of true pass rusher at the NFL level. But I think if I were picking between those guys, I'd probably say Vernon Hargreaves.
Next question comes from Waylon Oliver, and Waylon asks, how would you categorize the defense and how they played this year? How optimistic are the coaches and players heading into the offseason and looking forward to next season? Well, the defense was really a story of 2 halves, tale of 2 halves for them. I mean, obviously the defensive secondary breakdowns in the beginning of the season really put the Ravens behind the 8 ball in terms of making the playoffs. Now, they rebounded in the second half of the year. They were the number 1 pass defense in the NFL and number 2 defense overall. So those are 2 really good numbers. Now, part of that, I think, was because of the competition that they faced down the stretch, but they also shut down some really good quarterbacks and passing attacks. I mean, the Steelers did a really excellent job against them. So I think that the coaches are optimistic about where this defense is heading. If it's healthy, I think the loss of Terrell Suggs really impacted them and had a domino effect on this defense. If they get him back, I think there's a lot of optimism heading into next year.
All right, the next question from Nick Kopp. With his improvement over the course of the season, will the Ravens re-sign Shareece Wright, the cornerback? Well, Shareece certainly fits into the category of the guys that you're talking about, where you look at the early part of the season, he struggled. His first game, he gave up 2 touchdowns against the 49ers after the Ravens signed him earlier that week. Well, guess what? The next 10 games, how many touchdowns did he give up? Did he give up? 1. Just 1 the rest of the season. So
It's pretty nice.
Yeah, and he moved into the starting lineup, and that allowed the Ravens to move Ladarius Webb to safety. So the Ravens like the potential for him there. Also, he's a best friend of Jimmy Smith, and when he signed here in Baltimore, Jimmy was one of the guys that urged him to come here. He said, come play here. I think we could be here for a long time.
They were high school teammates, weren't they?
They were high school teammates. They've been best friends ever since then. So, I mean, these guys want to be together. They've made that, there's no secret about that. So I do think the Ravens are going to re-sign Shareece Wright. I think the team wants to. He wants to be here, and I think that's a good fit moving forward.
They could probably get it good financial terms on that.
He's not going to get a huge
Exactly.
deal.
Our last question comes from Dan Gaston. Gaston, I like that name. Yeah. What will these new coaches bring to the table for us? Well, Leslie Frazier, I think, is an excellent hire for the Ravens. I mean, he's got a ton of experience as a head coach and defensive coordinator, and he's a former player. Yeah. So he really brings a pedigree of getting turnovers. He did it both as a coach and player, and that's what the Ravens sorely lacked last year. If Leslie Frazier can get more turnovers out of this defense, and if they play up to the standards that they did during the second half of the year in terms of yards allowed, this defense can be excellent next year. The other hire, Joe Cullen. stepping in defensive line for Clarence Brooks, who we all know is battling cancer. I think that's another excellent hire. Clarence is still around. The guys love him. He can still be involved in this organization, but you needed somebody to come in on a day-to-day basis where Clarence unfortunately couldn't be here all the time. Joe steps into that void.
Yeah, both these guys are really experienced coaches, so excellent hires for the Ravens this offseason. And that does it in this week's Ravens Mailbag. But as always, we love to hear from you guys, so send in those questions each and every week. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.